Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's do the prayers first. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurbhavasvaha, Tatsavitra Bhargo Devasya Devaya, Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. अस्तो मा सतम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमय ओम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति. Let's open our Uddhava Gita books. Page number 337. This is chapter 11. And let's start with the verse number 41. And these are the words of Lord Krishna. Pratigraham manmasan tapastejoho yashonudam anyabhyam ev jivet shilerva dosh draktayo. A Brahman who considers that accepting charity from others will destroy his austerity, spiritual prowess, and fame, should maintain himself by teaching Vedic knowledge and engaging as a sacrificial priest. If he considers these two activities to also be faulty, then he should maintain himself by collecting grains from the agricultural fields. So if a Brahman finds fault in the occupations of a teacher of Vedic knowledge and sacrificial priest, then he should collect the grains that are found scattered in the agricultural fields. So not charging money for teaching. A Brahman who is reluctant to accept charity, thinking that such an act weakens his austerity, destroys his spiritual influence, gives him a bad reputation, should simply depend upon the Lord's mercy and not make a great endeavor to earn wealth. A Brahman should simply depend upon the mercy of the Lord and not endeavor unnecessarily for his family maintenance. The Lord has promised that he will maintain his devotee, and one who is sincere does not doubt the words of the Lord. Verse number 42. Actually, in relation to that verse, my Guruji used to say that God has given us 24 hours. Even if you teach for 8 hours, that means serve the society for 8 hours, you still have a few hours to earn the living. So you can earn the living according to what your aptitude is. The teachings should not be the source of your income. Okay, so then you don't feel guilty about it. Then you know that you are on the path. So 24 hours, we can divide it somehow so that we don't have to charge. We don't have to make it teachings as a business. 42. Brahmanasya hi deho yam kshudra kamay neshte krishraye tapsehe cheh pretyant sukhaye cha. The body of a Brahman is not meant for enjoying insignificant sense gratifications. Rather, it is meant for performing austerities in this life, so that a Brahman will enjoy unlimited happiness after death. So Brahman is, so it's not a, we saw that earlier and in other scriptures also, Brahman by aptitude, not by birth. So if you are predominantly sattvic, you are doing good, not just to reap the rewards here, for the ultimate good. The question may arise, why should a Brahman take so much trouble performing austerities? The answer is that the body of a Brahman is not a means for fulfilling insignificant material desires. It is meant for performing difficult austerities in this life, so that he will achieve unlimited happiness in the next life. A Brahman who has realized the transcendental personality of Godhead enjoys boundless spiritual happiness and so does not take pleasure in the gratification of the senses. Such a devotee does not undergo severe austerities simply for the purpose of deceiving himself. Those who consider that surrendering to the Supreme Lord involves great severe austerity think in that way because they are addicted to selfish acts of sense enjoyments. Being self-interested, they may ultimately engage in severe austerities for the purpose of attaining liberation. Devotees of the Lord, however, on the strength of their engagement in devotional service, reject the pleasures of the senses as being insignificant. It's not the duty of a Brahman to become either a sense enjoyer or a dry ascetic. His training is simply meant for him to understand that he is the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. If a Brahman carefully contemplates the meaning of the following three verses, he can surely come to the conclusion that human life is meant for engaging oneself in the devotional service of the Lord and not the pursuing insignificant sense gratification. And these verses are from Mukundmala Stotra. O Lord Hari, it's not to be saved from the dualities of material existence or the grim tribulations of the Kumbhibak hell that I pray to your lotus feet. So there are different degrees of hell also. So this is one of the hell is talking about. Nor is my purpose to enjoy the soft-skinned, beautiful women who reside in the gardens of heaven. I pray to your lotus feet only so that I may remember you alone in the core of my heart. Birth after birth. And another verse he's quoting over here. I have no attraction for performing religious rituals or holding any earthly kingdom. I do not care for sense enjoyments. Let them appear and disappear in accordance with my previous deeds. My only desire is to be fixed in devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord, even though I may continue to take birth here, life after life. And the third verse, O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, not to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. What I want only is the causeless mercy of your devotional service in my life, birth after birth. So only purpose is for a devotee is want to serve him. Only serve. Verse number 43. शिलोश्वृत्यः परितुष्टचितो धर्मं महान्तं विरजं जुषानः मयि अर्पितात् आत्मः गृहे एव तिष्ठन्नाति प्रसक्तः सम उपैति शान्तिम्. A Brahman householder should remain satisfied while maintaining himself by collecting rejected grains found in the fields and marketplaces. Keeping himself free of personal desire, he should practice religious principles while fixing his mind on me. In this way, a Brahman can remain at home, gradually cultivating detachment and thus advance toward the ultimate goal of life. The word Anshavritihi means to collect rejected grains that have been left in the marketplaces and agricultural fields. See, this was a tradition when they cut the crop, a lower part or some of the part was always left there, either for the people to pick up or for the birds and the animals to eat. So the phrase dharmam mahantam especially refers to faithfully serving guests. Shiril Narottam Das Thakur has said that one should engage in the service of the Supreme Lord, whether one is living at home or residing in the forest. The essence of all the instructions of Shastra is that it is the duty of all the members of the 8 Varnas and Ashrams to serve the Supreme Lord, while remaining indifferent to material enjoyments. If one utilizes everything in the service of Lord Krishna, then regardless of his position within the Varnashram social system, he must be considered a liberated soul. In this regard, one should carefully consider the verse describing Yukta Vairagya, beginning with Anasaktasya, and the verse describing Falgu Vairagya, beginning with Prapanch Tatya. By understanding the purport of these 2 verses, one's pure devotional service will be awakened. Without being enlightened by the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master, unrestricted material desires that are fulfilled by engagement in fruitive activities, or on a higher platform, indulgence in mental speculation will not allow one to favorably cultivate Krishna consciousness. Brahmins who are attached to ritualistic activities that are meant for enjoying material happiness, or who practice renunciation in the hopes of merging into the impersonal Brahman, invite inauspiciousness to fall upon themselves. In this regard, one should carefully contemplate the purport of these 2 verses. And these verses are also from, the first one is from Bhagavad Puran, okay? And the second one is from Narad Pancharatra. Somehow or other, if one is attracted to talks about me and has faith in the instructions I have set forth in Bhagavad Gita, and if one is actually detached from material things and material existence, his dormant love for me will be awakened by devotional service. If one is worshipping Lord Hari, who is the use of performing extraneous penances? And if one is not worshipping Lord Hari, no such penances will save one. If one can understand that Lord Hari is all-pervading, within and without, what is the need of performing penances? And if one is not able to understand that Hari is all-pervading, all his penances are useless. Verse number 44. Samudharanti ye viprama siddhantam mat prayanam tan udvrishyena chirad apdavayo nor ivarnuvat. Just as a ship rescues a person who has fallen into the ocean and is drowning, I deliver my devotee, Brahman, who may be afflicted with poverty or who endeavors to deliver others from this ocean of birth and death. When a person gives up the service of the Lord to enjoy a life of sense gratification, he is certainly to be considered fallen. Such a person can still benefit himself if he gives some of his hard-earned wealth for the service of the Lord. Here the example is given of a boat that rescues persons drowning in the ocean. Similarly, the Lord delivers those who are drowning in the ocean of material existence if they render service in this way. If by good fortune, one who has fallen into the ocean of material existence renders service to the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord, who are freed from all material desires, the Lord will deliver him out of his causeless mercy. Simply by rendering service to the spiritual master and other advanced devotees, one surely receives the mercy of the Lord. It is a well-known fact that the Lord is more mercifully inclined toward those who consider themselves devotees of his devotees than those who claim to be his direct devotees. Verse number 45. Sarvaha samudharet raja pitev vyasanat praja atmanam atmanah dhiro yatha gajpati gajana. Just as the king of elephants protects all the other elephants, under his shelter and also defends himself. So a king, just like a father, should afford his subjects full protection and also defend himself from all adversaries. The duty of a king is described in this verse. Just like a father, a king should protect his subjects from all kinds of danger. Evam vidho narpati vimane narkvachma vidhyuya hashvam pritsanam indren sah modate. A king who protects himself and his citizens by removing all sinful activities from his kingdom will certainly enjoy with Indra in celestial airplanes that are as brilliant as the sun. So over here he is talking about the duties of a Kshatriya. Because king is a Kshatriya, the leader of the society. 47. Vaishyaha vrityatu rajneho jiven mrigya yadapi charedva viprarupena na shvavrityaha katashan. If a Brahman is unable to maintain himself by performing his prescribed duties, he may accept the occupation of a Vaishya and thus save himself from a life of poverty. If he still faces difficulty as a Vaishya, he can adopt the occupation of Kshatriya, but he should never become like a dog by accepting an ordinary man as his master. Beginning with this verse, the Lord describes what should be done if one experiences difficulty maintaining himself by performing the duties of his Varan. A Brahman may earn his livelihood by doing business, but he should not sell wine or salt. If in danger, a Brahman may also adopt the profession of a Kshatriya. A Brahman is herein recommended to adopt the profession of a merchant rather than that of a Kshatriya. The idea is that selling commodities as a Vaishya is better than killing enemies as a Kshatriya. But it is emphasized that a Brahman should never earn his livelihood by serving low-class people. This is the opinion of Lord Krishna. Vaishyaha vritya tu rajanyaho jiven mrigya yadpati charedva viprarupena na shvavritya katashan. A Kshatriya who cannot maintain himself by his normal occupation may act as a Vaishya, maintain himself by hunting, or teach the Vedas to others, but he must never, under any circumstances, undertake the profession of a Shudra. If a Kshatriya is unable to maintain himself by his own profession, he may adopt the profession of a Brahman by teaching Vedic knowledge. Shudra vritim bhajed vaishyaha shudraha karu katkriyam krishnan mukto nagrahena vritim lipset karmanaha. A Vaishya who cannot maintain himself may adopt the occupation of a Shudra. And a Shudra who cannot find a master can engage in simple work, like making baskets and mats out of straw. However, all members of society who have adopted inferior occupations due to emergency situations must give them up once the difficulties have passed. So that means retort back to their higher level. When the emergency situation that caused one to accept an inferior occupation has passed, one must return to his normal occupational duties. One must never aspire to earn wealth by performing abominable activities. Number 15. Ved adhyaye savadha swaha balle anadhyare yathodayam dev rishi pitri bhutani madrupanye aham yajet. According to their means, householders should daily worship the sages by studying the Vedas, the forefathers by offering oblations, the demigods by performing sacrifices, the living entities in general by offering them food, and human beings by offering them water and grains. They should perform the 5 kinds of daily sacrifices. While understanding the demigods, the sages, forefathers, and indeed all types of living entities to be representations of my various potencies. After explaining what one should do in times of difficulty, the Lord once again describes the duties of a householder. A householder should repay his debt to the sages by studying the Vedas, his debt to the forefathers by offering them oblations, his debt to the demigods by performing sacrifices, his debt to living entities in general by offering them food, and his debt to the human beings by offering them food and water. In this way, householders should repay the 5 kinds of debts. So these are the Pancha Mahayagya, which we are familiar with. That's what he's describing. As a householder, these are our duties. Verse number 51. Yadrichyoho papena shuklehe no parjiten va dhanen apidyan bhutyan nyayen ev aharet kratun. A householder should maintain his dependence by the wealth that has come to him of its own accord, as well as the wealth that he has earned by honest means. He should also utilize his wealth to perform sacrifices and other religious functions. One should earn wealth by engaging in an honest profession, and one should not endeavor too strenuously, knowing that the Lord will supply his necessities of life. One should perform religious activities, such as sacrifices, without committing violence to other living entities. Verse number 52. Kutumbeshu na sanjet na pramadyet kutumbapi vipashev na shreram pashyet adrashtam api drishtvat. Although a householder may have many dependents, he should not become attached to them, thinking that they have an intrinsic relation with him. Nor should he become proud, considering himself to be some kind of a lord. An intelligent householder should understand that all kinds of material happiness, even that which is available in heaven, is just like the temporary material happiness that he has already experienced. In the next 4 verses, Lord Krishna describes the duties of a detached householder. Even though a householder acts like a little lord, surrounded by his dependents, he should not forget the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. He should know that his dependent family members are temporary, as are the unseen heavenly pleasures and visible pleasures of this world. The purport is that a householder should cultivate a mood of detachment so that he can guide his family members and other dependents back home, back to Godhead, for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. An intelligent person should not invite aversion to the Supreme Lord under the pretext that it is his primary duty to maintain his dependent family members, by hook or by crook. Just as the things of this world are temporary manifestations, so is existence in the heavenly planets. According to one's qualities and activities, one is placed within a particular varna or ashram. If there is any difficulty in the execution of one's prescribed profession, one may take up the profession of a lower varna. One should live in society and accept material enjoyment in such a way that will not cause a disturbance. One should gradually give up attachment for the material enjoyment that is available in this life and well as the next. Next one. Putra darapnaha bandhu naam sangamaha panth sangamaha anudeham viyante ete swapno nidra nugoyata. One's society of children, wife, relatives, and friends can be compared to a meeting of travelers at an inn. Upon changing his body, one is separated from all such friends and relatives. Just as when one wakes up from a dream, all that was seen is lost. Similar kind of a message we got from Yoga Vashishta yesterday. That we are all travelers. The association of wives, children, relatives, and friends should be considered to be like the meeting of travelers at a resting place. One should cultivate a mood of detachment from everything material by carefully considering how nothing is permanent in this world. All of one's relatives will vanish one day, however affectionate they may be. All objects of this world are temporary, as are the objects one sees in a dream. The relationships one has with his wife, children, kinsmen, and friends are temporary, just like the experiences of a dream. While dreaming, one comes in contact with various objects and people, but when he wakes up, all of these vanish. As long as one maintains attachment for such perishable objects, one cannot become steady on the transcendental platform of devotional service, and thus cannot relish the actual flavor of eternal happiness. One who remains attached to the bodily concept of family and friends cannot possibly give up the false egoism of I and mine. Unless a householder worships child Krishna, his attachment for his children will remain strong. As long as the Lord's pastimes in Madhurya Rasa do not become the subject of one's meditation, one will continue to think of his wife as the reservoir of all pleasures. Unless one becomes a pure devotee of Lord, accepting Lord Krishna as one's only friend, just like Shiridam, one will not be able to give up the hankering for temporary and superficial material relationships. Until one's propensity for rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna is awakened, one will continue to foolishly demand service from others. One who is actually intelligent should understand that there can be no satisfaction for the self on any planet within the material world. Therefore, like a traveler who has become very tired while traveling, one should go back home, back to Godhead. Eternal peace is the condition of the faithful servant of Lord Krishna. Itham pari mrishan muktoho griheshva atithi vadvasana na griher anubadet nirmamo nirankrita. A detached householder, after deeply considering his situation, should give up all pride and attachment and remain at home just like a guest. By doing so, he will never become entangled by domestic affairs. The word mukta means detached. While considering how everything in this world is a temporary manifestation, one should continue to perform his occupational duties, maintain his body and the bodies of his family members, and cultivate detachment by remaining at home like a guest. By full engagement in the devotional service of the Lord, one should free himself from the false egoistic conception of thinking, I am the enjoyer and all that I possess is mine. Such a false conception can be counteracted by thinking, I belong to Krishna and Krishna belongs to me. To free oneself from attachment for one's body, friends, and so on, one should engage in the service of Lord Hari with firm determination, whether one lives at home or resides in the forest. If one remains absorbed in thinking, I belong to this varn, I belong to this ashram, I am a man or I am a woman, and so on, one will remain a grih brat, a person whose life is centered around his family. Without realizing the purport of these two verses, one will either remain attached to family life or become attached to a false concept of renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. That is another beautiful scripture. So this author is quoting from there that it says, when one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. When one cultivates Krishna consciousness favorably, without the coverings of karma and jnana, only then will he transcend his designated position within the Varna ashram system. Verse number 55. कर्म भी गृह मैथियर इष्टवः माम एव भक्तिमान तिष्ठेत वनम व उपवेशत प्रजावान व परिव्रजेत. A householder devotee who faithfully worships me by the performance of his duties can reside at home or at a holy place of pilgrimage. If he has a grown-up son and has given up all desires for material enjoyment, he can take sannyas. The Supreme Lord said, a householder who is devoted to me should perform all of his activities for my satisfaction. While doing so, he can either live at home, go to the forest, or accept the renounced order of life, sannyas. The result of an attached householder's worship of the Lord is the attainment of pure devotional service. One should not remain unnecessarily entangled in family affairs, whether one lives at home, resides in the forest, or travels to holy places of pilgrimage. Remaining situated in a particular varna or ashram does not constitute a hindrance to becoming an advanced devotee of the Supreme Lord. The conclusion is that everyone should engage in the service of the Lord in all respects. So clearly, again and again, he's telling us that our goal of life is to serve God. Verse number 56. Yastva asat vartihi gehe putra viteshnaturah istrenaha kripandhi mudaho maham iti badyate. However, a miserly householder who has strong desires to enjoy his money, lusty desires with his wife, and the association of his children, and thus thinks, all of these are mine. I'm the master of all, I survey, is in the densest darkness of ignorance. This and the next two verses describe the fault of being too attached to one's household. One who does not worship Lord Hari, while giving up material attachment, is certainly committing an offense against the holy name of the Lord by maintaining material attachment in terms of I and mine. Even though such a person may dress like a devotee, he will not be liberated from his conditional state of material existence. 57. Aho me pitro vridho bharyaha balatma atmajaha anatha mam rite dinaha katham jivanti dukhitaha. Alas, how will my elderly parents continue to live? Without my protection, my poor wife with her small children will suffer terribly. How can my poor family live without me? One may think, how can I leave home to advance in Krishna consciousness when I have my wife and my 1-month-old son? Alas, how can I leave my sons and daughters who are fully dependent upon me? How will they prosper? They are too young. In this way, an attached person remains full of anxiety. The last verse of this chapter. Evam driyashyakshipt hridyo mood dhir ayam atriptastan anudhyayan mrito andham vishtetama. Thus, as a result of his foolish mentality, a householder whose heart is overwhelmed by family attachment remains in anxiety. While constantly meditating on his family, he dies and enters the darkness of ignorance. Those who engage their senses in sense gratification instead of engaging them in the service of Lord Krishna, think that without them, their old parents and their wives and children will suffer, or they will be criticized for not taking proper care of their dependents. In this way, the attached householders spend their days in anxiety. As a result of their primitive mentality, after death, they will certainly be degraded to a lower species of life. So this is the end of this chapter. So next chapter we'll start reading next week. Descriptions of Varnasrama. So more details is going to give it to us. So let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.